Michelle Obama decided to speak at the DNC, and she had a lot to say about her upbringing, about the affirmative action of generational wealth, and about trans and LGBTQ identifying children. Let's watch clip number 1.
We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. A business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance. If things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No. We don't get to change the rules so we always win. If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top. We will.
Sorry, y'all. Do y'all hear how racist that is? That's crazy. And it begs the question, first of all, who is we? I'm going to insinuate, since this whole crowd of all these different people are cheering, we means people of color, and that's just what she's throwing in. Clearly, she's insinuating black people, of course. Black people are at the top of the hierarchy when it comes to people of color in leftist ideology. So she said, we don't get second and third chances when we lose our businesses or bankrupt ourselves. We don't get to lie and cheat to make our way to the top. When we're at the bottom of a mountain, we don't expect an escalator to show up. So what she's really meaning is that white people are liars, they are cheaters, they expect everything to be handed to them. White people own this entire system and get to create whatever it is that they want. White people get handed second, third, and fourth chances. How that works, I don't know. Do you white people, let me know. Do y'all have a hotline y'all call when you need a second or third chance? And you go through a little questionnaire about your heritage and your skin color, and all of a sudden you're granted that second, third, or fourth chance. I have no idea what the hell this woman is talking about. But she's on the same victimhood arc that she's been on for the entirety of her life, and especially her life in politics at the side of Barack Obama. That is a crazy thing to say. And had she switched out the way she worded this by saying white people lie, white people cheat, and they steal, and they this and that, and they expect an escalator to be set out right in front of them, and they get second and third chances, guarantee she'd be getting a very different response. But because she's talking about the hardship of blackness and people of color, and people can use that as a crutch so they don't have to take accountability for their own actions, people are going to be cheering this on. And I do have to point out, you know, she's saying we don't have the luxury of the affirmative action of generational wealth, meaning that white people have had access to generational wealth by virtue of their whiteness. People of color haven't, and we don't have that privilege. There are many white people who in no way, shape, or form have benefited from generational wealth, who have no generational wealth, who are in this very moment in our year 2024 trying to build generational wealth for their kids to come, their grandkids to come, and to build their own legacy here in this country. They do not benefit from this privileged affirmative action of generational wealth. There are also many black and brown people in this country who do have generational wealth, whose parents owned businesses, their grandparents started businesses, their grandparents were doctors, lawyers, all of these different things, and they've been able to pass down that wealth from generation to generation, and now they're sitting in comfort here in 2024. There are also many black people who don't have access to that. Who are you to speak on behalf of an entire group of people and tell them what they do and do not have access to, what they do and do not have the privilege of? And the demeaning way in which she talks about people of color is astounding to me. And to do that and say that to just a huge crowd of applause is insane. Okay? And that is wholly separate from the clear racial undertone in everything that she's saying. If you are a white person who has struggled in life, who did not have access to generational wealth, what did she just say to you? Yes, you did. You're white. And I gotta imagine there's white people in the crowd at the DNC. There was thousands of people there that have struggled through their lives as well and have not been handed privilege on a silver platter by virtue of being born white. Yes, they listen to these speeches, and they've been so propagandized, so indoctrinated by this like woke speak, white guilt, self-flagellating language that they accept this. And they think that this is an okay thing to say out loud to a group of people who are now going to go on to decide the future of our country and who leads it. Michelle Obama is Delulu with a capital D, which explains why she was at the DNC saying this stuff. Now, beyond that, she talks about her own life, her own family. And let's listen to that clip before we go on.
You see, my mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning. So my mother volunteered at the local school.
In fact, they were suspicious of people who took more than they needed. Okay. Quick Google search of Michelle Obama. What's her net worth? $70 million. $70 million. They were suspicious of people who took more than they needed. And she talks about people who are celebrating in the face of those who are experiencing anguish. It's the privileged versus the underprivileged, the oppressors versus the oppressed. If I recall correctly, we went through a COVID pandemic in our year 2020. And everybody was shut down. Only essential workers, whatever that means, were able to go out into our civil society and conduct themselves and get paid for their work. You had kids out of school. You had people struggling. If I remember correctly, the Obamas had parties during that COVID pandemic when everybody was shut down. And they were hosting people in their little tented area outside of their large mansions and properties. And the elites got together and had a fun day in the sun while everybody was on lockdown and staying in their homes. If I remember correctly, Michelle Obama and Barack Obama have a big ass mansion on Martha's Vineyard and several other properties. You're suspicious of people who have more than they need. And this seems to just be the sticking point, I guess, for a lot of these left-leaning politicians. They make their way into government. They make millions of dollars. In Michelle Obama's case, a net worth of $70 million. How much of that she acquired during his presidency and after, I do not know. How exactly she acquired that much money, I do not know. But she can, I guess, lay out how much is needed. You know, how much of that is necessary, because apparently we're never supposed to have more than we need. But they go into government, they acquire all of this money, and then they talk about taxing the rich. And my parents, you know, were hardworking Americans and they never took more than they needed. Meanwhile, every single day you're taking more than you need according to your own ideology. And I sit on the other end of it saying, you know, that's capitalism, baby. You know, outside of doing things illegal and, you know, the insider trading that should not be allowed and people should be prosecuted for, I say fair is fair. You want to make money in this country and make more than you'll ever need, that's okay. You take that money, you pass it down to your kids, you build a foundation, you do this and that, I do not care. But to stand on a side that says nobody should ever have more than they need, and we're going to move in a communist direction, and it's all about equity and making sure that everybody is equal, and not only do we have equal opportunity, but equal outcome in this country, and you're sitting on a cool $70 million talking about that as if you don't have access to an abundance of money to make the changes that you're calling for, and your mansion on Martha's Vineyard, and your COVID parties, and all this different crazy stuff that you guys are engaging in. Give me a break. But this is what they do every single election cycle. And they talk as if like there are these, oh, I'm so humbled by my experience and the experience of my parents. And it's almost as though in their elitism, they're trying to come off as the common folk, when you know damn well you're not. So go ahead and acknowledge that and maybe talk about your experience being on the other end of it as somebody who is now extremely rich, and talk about what you're gonna do, because you point to other rich people and tell them what they're going to do, but the finger is never pointing at you, even though we all know how much money you have. It is public information. Now, quite honestly, maybe 70 million is not the accurate estimate. She probably has more that we have no idea about. But this sort of point fingers down at the rich folk who are creating all of America's problem, while failing to acknowledge that you are very much one of those people. And not only that, you got the money from complaining about the rich people and from building a campaign that's supposed to be for the common folk and for solving their issues and for nobody having more than they need. And now you, for damn sure, have way more than you need, according to your own ideology, according to your own playbook. Now, if that wasn't enough, the talk of white people having escalators to just, I guess, fling themselves to the top of any ladder, of any hierarchy, she goes on to discuss her parents and being suspicious of those who have more than they need. And then she talks about children and children who want to love who they love and be who they want to be. We can all guess what that issue's about. Let's roll the clip.
Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love. Look, that doesn't make anybody's life better. Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love. Look, that doesn't make anybody's life better.
Okay. Being who they are and loving who they love. I love the vagueness, right? Because they can go out and like make these very vague statements that sound super beautiful, but let's really break down what that means. Being who they are is, of course, in reference to gender ideology and transgenderism and gender dysphoria, often experienced by kids in today's day and age at exponentially rising rates, which is just insane. So by being who they are, she means kids either socially or medically transitioning. The big hot button issue is, of course, the medical transition, which the left supports and Republicans do not support. So what she means by be who they are is allowing little boys to undergo puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, have their genitalia cut off of their bodies in service of this new identity, become lifelong medical patients for the rest of their life with a multitude of complications because these are experimental procedures. That's what she means by be who they are. For girls, she means undergoing puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, double mastectomies, having a skin off your arm flayed off during surgery, made into a phallic shape so that you can have male genitalia or something resembling male genitalia, and having that attached to your privates. That's what she means by allowing kids to be who they are. See, when we strip away this really nice language of kids know who they are and they know who they want to be, and we talk about what it really means, how it's really implemented, do you see how the image changes? And I'm going to be really graphic here. For those of you who don't understand, I sort of explained how a girl undergoes that sex reassignment surgery. Let's explain how a boy gets that done. He's going to have his genitalia cut off. He's then going to have a hole opened up in his private area. And if you're thinking, Amala, that's not naturally there. You know, there's no female anatomy in there. How does one keep that open? They're given a dilator that they will go home with, and every single day have to put a dilator in this hole that has been opened up in their body to keep it open. Now, you can imagine a hole just randomly being placed in your body. There's probably a lot of different medical complications that happen with that. Yeah, some people have it closed up. Many have infections. Many, the dilator is extremely painful. Of course, there's nothing natural that's happening for a woman happening down there. So you can imagine all the different medical complications that happen with that. So when she says allow children to be who they want to be, that's what Michelle Obama is talking about. Again, stripping away the language really changes what that means, and it changes how beautiful the sentiment actually is. Now, she says, for being who they are and for loving who they love. How many of you knew your sexuality at like 4 years old? Any of you? No? Probably not. You probably maybe had a crush when you went to preschool. And you thought, oh, Sally's really cute, or, you know, oh, that kid Chris, he's really cute. I think I have a crush on them. Do kids really know what that means? Do they know what their sexuality is? So why are we concerning ourselves with who children love and promoting this idea that children just love who they love and they are who they are? And that's why we should have these conversations about sexuality and sexual acts in their schools, which is what's happening. So when you see parents go to school board meetings and they're saying, I found pornography in my child's library book. And maybe they shouldn't be looking at images of two men in bed together, and they shouldn't be reading a description of what sexual acts look like between heterosexual or homosexual couples. That raises a red flag for me. And then the Michelle Obamas of the world will look at you and say, we shouldn't be demonizing our children. We want them to be who they are and to love who they love. It's a lot different when we strip away the language and talk about how these issues are actually being faced in our society. Talk about why we are actually discussing these things. It has nothing to do with not wanting a child to be who they are. In fact, it has everything to do with preserving what a child actually is, which is an innocent being who should not be having these conversations, who should not be confused in this way, who should not be concerning themselves with the ideas of gender or sexuality. It is, in fact, the preservation of what children are and the preservation of the love that children are supposed to experience, which is an innocent, non-sexualized love. So they will run on this platform for who knows how long. And these are going to be like the real sticking points. It's going to be about racism. It's going to be about LGBTQ issues. It's going to be about things like abortion. But the implementation of these things, when covered in all this beautiful language, is actually segregation and separating people based on race, telling poor, Black people that they have it harder than poor white people, telling people of color in general that they don't live life on easy street while white people do, segregating people in their schools, segregating them in programs, allowing certain people to be at the top of the leaderboard when it comes to jobs and affirmative action and college scholarships and all of these different things, and alienating others. So they'll say it's beautiful and we're doing things for race. Instead, they're implementing racism. They'll say, I'm pro-choice. I want women to be able to take care of their bodies. I want them to be able to do all these wonderful things and set a path for their life. What it really means is we offer free abortions and free vasectomies outside of the DNC, which is a little too much in your face. I can totally understand wanting to be pro-choice, but is it something that we need to be shouting from the rooftops that we've just received an abortion outside of the DNC? Probably not. And they'll talk about children loving who they are and accepting themselves and loving who they want to love and being who they are. What it really means is gender transitions, and talk of sexuality with children who are too innocent to have those conversations. So don't be fooled by the language, and don't be fooled by Michelle Obama. I know she's so charismatic, and so is Barack Obama, and I see a lot of people saying, I miss the days of Barack Obama because he had so much character and he was truly presidential and he had so much tact and, he really knew how to speak to a crowd and how to represent this country. But look behind the scenes at the things they're actually supporting and what they're actually pushing forward, because I can guarantee you behind the charisma and the lovely face and the character is actually very bad policy. And Michelle Obama made that abundantly clear in her DNC speech. And those are my thoughts on that. After Michelle Obama's Barack Obama's presidency was like, Michelle Obama, she's cool. She's stylish. She did that whole get out and play thing with the kids and was like talking about fitness and just was really like a classy first lady. But then you hear her ideas and you go, oh, wait a second. Same shit, different day. I don't need that. We don't need that. And again, her DNC speech totally emphasized that, but she is sort of seen as this like untouchable force on the left, and is just seen as like such a classy woman who has all these great ideas. The most educated Black woman in America is what people call her. And then you lift off the veil a little bit and listen to what she has to say and just know that it is no good.